Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. So, Mulan is a legend. It's not a real. I mean, we don't know if it's a real individual, a real human being behind the legend. It's a very brief legend. Not much is known about her from antiquity in ancient China. So it's not something like like a Pocahontas or a completely fictional character like a Cinderella or something like that. There was just a general legend. So Disney was completely in their rights to embellish this story around her, and they did a wonderful job with that original animated classic. It is she is counted as a Disney princess. You guys were asking Sound Engraver about that, but of course, as Sound Engraver pointed out, she's the only Disney princess that isn't technically a princess, right? Not even a chieftain's daughter or anything like that, or marrying into royalty or anything like that. Part of that, though, is kind of the nature of of ancient China. She wasn't supposed to be an emperor's daughter. That would have changed around everything. But she does have a father, and the father figure in the movie is very key. And we're going to talk about this. It really was a solid, amazing film, and they were doing something really cool with the feminine hero's journey. So let me explain to you the difference between this. I've done it a little bit before at different times, but the masculine hero's journey and the feminine hero's journey, these are two very different things. And this is something that the modern ideologue, modern academia, all these things, they hate this. They hate this talk. They'll hate the fact that I'm even telling it to you and explaining it to you because they want to brush it aside. There's no difference between men and women. There's no difference between masculine and feminine. They're all social constructs. All this is baloney. All of this is ridiculous nonsense. Hard science itself disproves that, but they will continue to cling to that idea until their dying breath. Because they're ideologues. They've built their entire identity and worldview around this ideology. Now, an ideology is not the same as a religion or or any kind of coded belief system. An ideologue, an ideology, is something that's very thin. It's very simple, simplistic, but it's treated as though it's the core of the universe. It doesn't hold up. So rather than having a foundation beneath it that really bears up this ideology, it's this thin, simplistic ideology with all of these really random supports that has to be constantly overlaid upon themselves and everything, and all this like weird scaffolding structure that constantly has to be repaired and overlaid, and it becomes this big monstrous, entity, all to support this silly little ideology that people have just, set in stone for themselves. This is why ideologues tend to eat their own. You see it happening on Twitter. You see it happening right now with the new Mulan film, the live action film. The changes they made, make no mistake, were for the sake of ideology. We've got to get rid of her love interest. We've got to make her amazing from the beginning. She's a wonderful, really play up the warrior aspect. Get rid of all of those little helpful characters. We can't have any like cutesy little Mushu characters around her or anything like that because it's got to be all about her and her legendary, blah, blah, blah. No, that completely removes the hero's journey element from it, as I'll get to in a second. But so it came from that ideology standpoint, but because they didn't play all the right little ideologue games, you've got ideologues now and other people like us who don't like ideology anyway, attacking it and boycotting it and stuff like that. So the ideologues eat their own because of that scaffolding, just becomes spreads and unruly, and people don't know where to step anymore, which, what the vibration of this step is going to cause this arm and strut to vibrate away or something. It's nonsense. It gets to be completely unruly and just insane. So that's what's going on with the films now. But let's talk about the difference between the masculine and the feminine hero's journey. Okay, so the masculine hero's journey is typically what we mean when we say hero's journey. Now, just because it's the masculine doesn't mean that women can't relate to or draw inspiration from or really feel a kindred with a masculine hero's journey. Not at all. Of course they can, and plenty of them do. But in general, the masculine hero's journey, and this all comes from psychoanalysis, psychoanalytic theory, basically. And in schools or whatever, they'll try to sneer at psychoanalytic theories. Oh, we've evolved past that. No, you haven't. You what have you evolved to? You've evolved to feminist theory, queer theory, Marxist theory, post-colonial theory, all of these theories that have nothing to do with studying literature. They're activisms. They're activist goggles you put on before you approach any book or film, so that you can just use that book or film as a tool to further your activism. Whether you can do that by tearing that piece of art down or building it up, that's all you're worried about at that point is your activism. You're not actually worried about studying the art. or the literature itself. So the idea here is that that psychoanalytic theory was one of the last ones that was actually even useful, and it does come from sort of a basic psychology. All right, so the masculine hero. Now you have to be metaphorical about this. You can't be too directly, you can't apply these things too directly. Although sometimes you can in fairy tales. So if you got the young hero's first encounter with the feminine in the world is the mother. Now, maybe it's not an actual mother, maybe it's sort of a metaphorical mother. Superman's metaphorical mother, for example, is Smallville and his raising of the Kents, that wonderful, rich, nurturing, warm, unconditional, inviting Smallville on the farm setting. And the lighting is usually done to show that. So it's both Jonathan and Martha in that respect. But that's the metaphorical mother, So the young hero engages with the metaphorical mother, senses that feminine force of empathy and compassion and unconditional love. And then the masculine hero at some point has to overcome a tyrannical father, which seeks to supplant or take away that feminine force, the metaphorical mother. So you have to overcome a tyrannical father, which again, doesn't necessarily have to be the actual father. Maybe their actual father is the benevolent king archetype, which is fine. Jonathan Kent, wonderful benevolent king archetype, there are, or even Jor-El in a lot of ways. So, but the tyrannical father is the rest of the world, the other parts of the world that come crashing in. And they steal the masculine hero away from that feminine, that metaphorical mother. And you can see that this is just growing up in general for anybody, any male in this respect. And we'll talk about the feminine hero's journey in a second. So the male hero has to overcome the tyrannical father to regain that feminine force in the world. Now, at that point in his life, it's not about finding his mother again. It's not about going back to mommy or finding a new mommy or anything like that. No, the feminine force at that point is represented or encountered within a love interest or the damsel in distress or something like that. And it doesn't have to be the thinly, constructed, damsel or whatever, it doesn't have to be, Pauline at the top of the scaffolding with Donkey Kong or the villain twisting his mustache, tying the lady to the railroad tracks. It doesn't have to be that, certainly Lois Lane isn't what you would think of as a damsel in distress, but she needs saving quite a bit, right? And Superman sees in her, she's obviously loads of different. I mean, there's worlds away in personality from Lois Lane to Ma Kent, but Superman sees in her a woman who will fight for what's right no matter what, even without superpowers. He's incredibly inspired by that, and he sees in her that feminine energy as well, and fights to, not just for Lois Lane, but fights to bring that Smallville upbringing that he had and preach it to the world. Not preach, but you know what I mean. Lead by example to the world. So that's that idea, is the overcoming of the tyrannical father to reclaim that feminine energy for yourself in the world or whatever. It quite often comes even specifically in the form of a love interest at that point. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Obviously, there's much, much more to go on with the masculine hero's journey. Let's talk about the feminine hero's journey. It's very similar, except the feminine hero's journey, it's switched. The feminine hero's journey seeks to tame the masculine. The tyrannical father or they need to tame it, and it's not taming it as far as emasculating it. No. Because if the female heroine, if the female hero in a female hero's journey, a feminine hero's journey, if she was to emasculate the masculine, well, that's no longer any use to her. There needs to be, just like the masculine hero needs to have a meeting of masculine and feminine in his life, an equality there, a balance. The feminine hero's journey has to achieve that as well. And it's usually through taming the beast, right? So that she gets the prince. So you see from my language right there, Beauty and the Beast is the quintessential feminine hero's journey in that sense. It does involve a love interest, just as the masculine hero's journey involves a love interest quite often, but it doesn't have to. We'll talk about that. But taming that beast to a prince who's still very masculine, but who will care for, doesn't have to be feared, can be respected rather than feared. That's the idea. And that's why, Beauty and the Beast is often mentioned as that quintessential feminine hero's journey. Now, it doesn't have to be a love interest, as I said. In fact, I've often talked about Moana. Moana's a wonderful example, a Disney movie, and a wonderful example of a feminine hero's journey that doesn't include a love interest. I mean, I forget his character's name. What's the Rock's character in that? The demigod, the Hawaiian demigod guy that he plays. He's not a love interest for Moana, but he is this wild, unruly, completely masculine demigod that she has to come to terms with, come to an understanding with, respect his power, but convince him to be a little more selfless, convince him to be a little more empathetic and stuff like that. And it's a perfect story. It's a wonderful story of how the two of them, those two forces together, have to go in to save the islands and to save the day at the end of that film. Wonderful. So the idea of taming the beast, taming the unruly masculine, that's often the feminine hero's journey. Now apply that to Mulan, the original Mulan. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. You have Mulan, our main character, who's our feminine hero here, and she is very feminine. She's not striving, like she doesn't wish to be. She doesn't have these dreams to be a soldier, right? That's not what she dreams to be. She just doesn't quite fit in with all of the culture's cookie cutter ways of telling her to be feminine, right? She is feminine, and she'll find ways to be feminine on her own grounds, but she doesn't quite fit in with the matchmaker's ways and stuff like that. And we see that. And we see that it causes a little bit of, not strife, but a little bit of, concern from her father. So, Mulan's father. Mulan has a very benevolent father, one that loves, encourages, understands her. Soundagraver pointed out that wonderful scene last night when he says, the blooms, look at that flower that blooms late. I think it'll be the most beautiful of all, or whatever, and comforts her in that aspect. So she doesn't have a tyrannical father, but the tyrannical father is that sort of masculine, quote unquote patriarchy of her time at that point, the rules that say she can't do this, she has to do this, and so on for for her life. Now she breaks that mold, not because she is woman, hear her roar. No, she breaks that mold to save her father. She breaks that mold because of a feminine empathy and sympathy and trying to save her father, trying to sacrifice herself for her father. That's the stuff of heroes. She doesn't go off to war because she's got to prove that a woman can do anything a man can do. Nonsense. She goes off to war to save her father. That's a wonderful, wonderful motive and everything like that. And when she goes to war, she's not automatically amazing at war. No. She's a horrible soldier at first, just like the rest of the people in the camp. She has the aid of she has her animal sidekicks, as any princess does. They usually have 3 or 4 animal sidekicks. She's got her horse. She's good with animals. That's that feminine force. The idea that princesses have those animal sidekicks is because they are that complete and total innocent slate. And in their innocence, they're able to commune with nature. That's the idea of the princess archetype, and Mulan fits that. She's good with her dog at first, Ka, her horse, the cricket, and then Mushu. Mushu's an interesting choice because he's an animal, but he's a supernatural being. He's this dragon. One of the ancestors, the ancestors send him to. He goes anyway to help her. They're trying to get him to bring her back and whatnot. But anyway, you've got this idea of a supernatural element there. So it changes up her sidekicks a little bit there, but they have to help her. She's not, she doesn't just automatically show up and is amazing. She learns with all of the other men and becomes quite a great warrior because of her cleverness that she has. And she has that from the beginning. We see her exhibit that from the first when she puts the little bone over the dog's, collar or whatever and gets him to feed the chickens and everything like that. She's clever. We know that she has that from the beginning, and we know that she has her feminine compassion and empathy and all of that. And these aren't strictly, feminine traits or anything like that. But in terms of mythology, they're archetypalized as feminine, especially that abundance of them. So she's able to have that. She's a perfect heroine archetype. I use her in my studies. I mean, my classes sometimes as the heroine. And she has the masculine traits that she learns of war and all of that. She gains those traits, and yet that doesn't change her. That doesn't take away her femininity. She's still able to have feminine feelings for her captain. Develops a crush on him. Is sad in the end. When he compliments her, as Soundagraver pointed out, when he compliments her, she saved China with him. This is a big deal. She saves China, and she did that from her own sense of empathy and sense of being a hero as well. But she doesn't want to hear him say, "You fight good," as he says, kind of awkwardly. Now, the modern day feminist, version of this character, that's all she'd want to hear. And then she'd say, "That's right, but I don't need you, a man, to tell me," or whatever, and walk away. No, Mulan looks sad at that point because she wants to hear that she's caught his eye as well. She wants to hear that he's romantically interested as she is. Gasp, we can't have that today. I mean, you can see now that I'm explaining it, how, first of all, how this is a wonderfully profound story, and this is why it still resonates with people, that original animated film, because it resonates with the human experience, with the masculine, feminine experience, and there are traits in it, just as plenty of women out there can relate to and be inspired by the masculine hero's journey. Mulan, as a feminine, he's done so true to the archetype that plenty of men can relate to and be inspired by and enjoy the film as well. But the current ideology says, no, we can't have that at all. Get rid of that love interest. Take him out completely. We can't have that. How dare we have a love interest? And look at the types of films that they've already done this with. Who even talks about Brave anymore? We're going to have a princess with no love interest at all. Ha, Merida, Brave. Well, it was a big deal when it came out at first, but does anybody even care about that movie anymore? No one even talks about it anymore. It doesn't resonate because it doesn't follow the journey. Now, there are great things in Brave. It's not a horrible film. There are great moments and stuff like that. But no, it just doesn't work. It doesn't resonate because it strayed from that archetype. It strayed from that formula that is so profound in people's minds and hearts. Same thing with Frozen. People said I was absolutely crazy from the very beginning. I said, this is not a film that will ever have the long-standing, the longevity as the classic Disney princess films do. And everybody said I was crazy because look how amazing that big and huge that first movie was. And it made so much money. It just is crazy. Well, it had a lot of good elements, wonderful performances, beautiful animation. And it hit at the right time for some of the songs to be a big deal for the kids and stuff like that. But then you kind of stopped hearing about it after that. They tried to play it up a little bit with a short or something like that. And then to the point where they finally put out a sequel, and the sequel didn't garner anywhere near the buzz. People were kind of over it. That cultural moment had passed. And I guarantee you, give it 10 years, it's not that people will forget about it altogether because it's still going to be part of that Disney machine of publicity. Any Disney film, especially Disney princess film, automatically gets publicized when the next one comes out, so no one's going to forget about it entirely. But no, it's not going to be this be all and end all film like others are, like a Mulan or like a Beauty and the Beast or like a Cinderella even, because it strayed from that formula. We no longer have that archetypal feminine hero's journey that so deeply resonates. They tried to squeeze it in a little bit with Kristoff, but they didn't develop it. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a great movie about two sisters and the love of sisters. That's fine. But rather than spend its time trying to promote that kind of story, the movie spends half of its time trying to tear down the traditional story, with the whole Hans subplot and everything like that, and the traditional Disney princess love at first sight. We have to scoff at that and everything like that. It's not going to have the staying power. It's not going to be profound. It's not going to people aren't going to relate to it as they will. And we're seeing that with Mulan right now. The reviews it's getting, every time you hear bad things about it, I always kind of like take a glance to see, is it because of the how it strayed from the ideologue path? So you've got ideologues, eating their own there, or is it because of people like us who think this is ridiculous? It wasn't needed. First of all, stop it with the stupid live action remakes. The classics are classics for a reason. Leave it alone. Or is and then plus, stop. Why would you mess the story up? If you want to do a live action remake, then do a live action if you have to. But stop crazy, trading out elements of the story, crucial elements of the story. And one thing that Al did say that I caught in his description of the film when he was in Sound Engravers chat the other night is that he said, she's amazing from the start. The Mulan in that film is wonderful from the beginning. She doesn't have to learn to be wonderful. She is the Marysue. This is what the ideologues have replaced the feminine heroes' journeys with. And they think it's great. But time and again, they're learning that it's not. It doesn't work. The Marysue, this is the Rey Skywalker or whatever. Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, this is the Marysue. Those characters don't have to learn anything, at least in terms of learning how to do something. They are already amazing. Everything they need to know is already within them. Immediately when they start showing how amazing they are, they first time they do anything, people are in awe of their power. People are in awe around them. Oh, wow, you can do this, you can do that. They're constantly impressed with them. They don't face any consequences or sanctions. I mean, look at Captain Marvel. At no point in that movie did she have to learn to stop doing this or this. All she had to learn was how much the man was pushing her down, how much she was being told that she wasn't amazing when she actually really was super powerful. And she already had all that she needed. And she doesn't need to change or learn to do anything. She's so amazing as is. No, that's a horrible story. No one wants to hear a story about a character who's already perfect and amazing. And this is how they're going to be perfect and amazing. And then by the end, they're still perfect and amazing. That's just bad writing 101. But ideologues can't see that because they're so blinded by that simplistic little ideology that they've decided to build up this whole ridiculous strata to or sphere or whatever to protect, that they can't see it anymore. They've deluded themselves to the point that they can't see that. So you actually have people with a straight face trying to say that Captain Marvel was just a superhero movie like any other. No, it's fine. No, she had a hero's journey. Yes, she did. No, she didn't. Open your eyes. She had no kind of hero's journey. Rey has no kind of hero's journey. Rey is a Marysue, cut and dry. That's it. It's bad writing. And people, one of the defenses that ideologues like to give when it comes to that term Marysue, they hate that term because they know they're guilty of it on some level. So they try to scoff at the term. Every time they hear the term, they try to curl their, nose or whatever, like, oh, yeah. How dare you use that term? You're one of those. You're one of those people who uses that term. Well, it's a good term. It's accurate. Can you give me an argument as to why it's not accurate? Oh, no, you can't. That's why you're just sitting there tell me that, no, it doesn't apply. No, it's a horrible, horrible way to write. And that's all they're doing now. That's what they're doing with Mulan now. That's what they will continue to do with all of these female heroes. And it is sad because we've had amazing, strong female heroes out there like Mulan, like Princess Leia. But when they try to remake them, not only do they go on to make new movies that don't give us strong female heroes anymore, now we have Marysue instead. Now they're going back and remaking or trying to recontextualize or overlay their ideology on all of the great strong female heroes we've already had. So like those stupid little Disney animated shorts that try to retell the New Hope story or whatever, and they make Leia just constantly having to show those buffoons, Han and Luke, who are trying to rescue her, how it's done and blah, blah, blah. Garbage, completely disrespectful to the character. It's how does anybody defend this? I have no idea. And now what they're doing to Mulan too, trying to change it that way. Nope. It's just another nail in the coffin. And again, I know there are rumors. There are always rumors. Well, they're starting to learn. They're starting to learn, and that's good. If that's true, that's good. Even if it's true, though, we won't see any change anytime soon. The ideology, as I said, that picture of all the scaffolding and all the ridiculous ways to protect it, it's so embedded in Hollywood, and that scaffolding's grown so unruly that any change is going to be a long time coming. And it'll take consistent, absolute, no, you don't get my monies from us as an audience to push them to be persistent and root all of that garbage out of Hollywood and finally give us good stories. We have to be persistent. We have to. Do not pay and watch Mulan. You're part of the problem if you do. If you're a pirate like Al, do it some other way. I'm not necessarily condoning that, but when we give it the money and when we say, well, let's see what it's like so I can be part of the conversation, they don't care why you're doing it. They just care that you give them the money, and then you've lost your voice. You've lost your vote. Give them their money. Shut up. I don't want to hear what you have to say about it because they don't either. See, Spidey Rules. Welcome, Spidey Rules. Says the ideologues of today are the modern day witch hunters. Yeah, I mean that's a great example. That's what ideology is. The Red Scare, that was ideology, and you saw how they ate their own, right? Certainly the Salem trial witch hunts. Yeah, definitely. The French Revolution, Robespierre, the head guy, behind it, eventually gets guillotined as well because these ideologies eat their own. That unruly system of protection. It's just so hard not to trip over eventually.